you'll be there. Perhaps we start with a small applause from Berlin to you. And to also start this day, this evening, this event shall be at your honor as a thank and also as a clear signal of support to you personally and also to the general values which you address with your work. The Solidarity Award of Südosteuropa-Gesellschaft has been created several years ago as a complementary addition to the long-standing award for German-speaking journalists who report about the region, Southeast Europe, in German-speaking media, because we saw on the one hand increasing pressure on NGO activists, on media activists, on journalists who are critical and independently reporting throughout the region, and the necessity to do more for supporting individuals who are doing this work are under high pressure by not only supporting them individually, but showing by these cases that we take care, that we watch, that we are aware, and that what is happening to persons like you is recognized here and not ignored, and it's not that we close our eyes. So this is why we created the Solidarity Award. Unfortunately, the award prize sum, the money which is given, is very small, so it is more like an emotional and moral support. But it is given, like hand-given by our members who are giving us the grants to spend it. So you can see that there's a broad support throughout Südosteuropa-Gesellschaft for this. We are fortunate to have you here today online, but of course it's unfortunate that you were not able to come to Berlin to join us in person, hopefully yet. Later on, perhaps you or perhaps also Max, or in the talk later on, we might talk more about it. I think it's not up to me to say more details about it, but we are very fortunate that we can have you here online from your home. And as already Banu said earlier, you're looking stunning, and we're very, very happy to see you. Our event will be scheduled like this. We will have a small opening by me, which is taking place. Then there will be a Laudatio held on your work and your person by Max Lux, who is an expert on Turkey from the Green Party in German Parliament, but also one of those who is very much engaged regarding the debates on the developments in Turkey regarding rule of law, regarding democracy, and perhaps also regarding the European path as far as it's possible to talk about it. Then Elif will respond to the Laudatio, so be careful what you are saying.
Oh.
There's the strong journalistic counter check.
No, it's like getting nervous.
Yes. And then we will have a small talk and with Elif online, and we invited your colleague and I think also friend Banu Güven to join us on the panel, so that we would not be in a completely offline, online surrounding. And of course I have prepared some questions for you, but as many people know here, we will be also welcome to have perhaps impulses or emotions or contributions from the plenary. After that is all done, we will here have the possibility to have a small drink and a little snack afterwards. And then we should leaving the building latest around 8:30. So the idea is that we would be between 7:15 and 7:30 through with this official part. To reach this time aim, I would now do a sharp cut in my opening and hand over directly to Max Lux. I would like to also not only thank you for being tonight here, but also thank you and your team for making it possible that we have this surrounding in German Parliament available again for the Solidarity Award today. I think it's a signal that this transparent building, which is showing the idea of transparency and democracy, which is only done by critical journalism, is also a very fitting and very important signal as a place for our today's event, for giving the Solidarity Award in general, but specifically also to Elif Akgül. So thank you, thanks to your team and for your engagement, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Manuel, dear members of the Southeast Europe Society, dear representatives of the press, dear guests, dear Banu Güven, dear all, and of course also my dear brilliant staff, Firat, Tara, and Marcel, who provided a lot to this event tonight. And especially dear Elif, it's really a big honor for me to be here with you tonight. I wish you would be here. I think that this will happen. And I feel very honored as a politician, being a rapporteur for Turkey in the Foreign Affairs Committee of Germany's Parliament and being a member of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, because we as politicians, we sit in our rooms and we keep debating a lot, but people like you do the work on the ground, and I'm so thankful for your commitment and for your work, and to be here with you tonight, because whether in Western Iran or Eastern Ukraine, in lawless favelas, at press conferences, in American halls, in authoritarian states full of surveillance, or in areas of war. Even in 2025, people are still risking their freedom and their lives for the sake of free speech, striving to awaken the world. And today, we honor you, a journalist who offers us a unique insight into what it means to work as a journalist in Turkey. Dear Elif, anyone familiar with your work knows that your fight for freedom of expression, press freedom, and freedom of information is an unprecedented contribution to democracy all over Europe. Those who were imprisoned or even murdered in broad daylight in their search for the truth remain unforgotten, because you bring these cases to public attention and preserve their memory. As a court rapporteur, you inform the critical public about both well-known and lesser-known cases. You were closely involved in the trial of the murders of Armenian journalist Hrant Dink. You co-founded the very well-known, I think many people know this association, the well-known MLSA Association. As a feminist journalist, you are also an expert and a point of contact for many people from the civilian population. And although the judiciary in Turkey is politicized and attempts to take action against you, you manage to mitigate this injustice, and sometimes also with humor. After the last detention of Elif, she was handcuffed from behind as she left the flat, and you said, for the show. The handcuffs were soon removed, but when she entered the police headquarters, they were put on again in the same way. I will return to this point later. But sometimes you also rebuke the regime with scalpel-like sentences. This is how you describe the morning of your arrest on February 18th. The anti-terror police stormed your flat at 6:04 a.m. and banged so loudly on the door that you initially thought the neighbors were responding to a fire. You recall, seeing a masked officer with a long-barreled weapon was not intimidating, but rather confusing. With words like these, your pen is indeed mightier than Erdogan's handcuffs. But it is not only the pen that makes you powerful. You provide the victims with a face, and you name the perpetrators. This is especially true in situations where the unjust state symbolically attempts to strip you of your freedom, but you do not allow this to happen in reality. I would like to return to the subject of your imprisonment. During Elif's detention, she witnessed other prisoners being subjected to humiliating treatment, including a woman who was subjected to a body search, and another whose child had a weapon held to her head. They remind us that ending injustice is not a matter of fate or an individual choice, but rather our shared responsibility. The reports you bring to kitchen tables in Turkey and also here in Germany are unsettling. Your reports are indispensable because your perspective activates, can disrupt inertia and prevent repression. That is another reason why we have the utmost respect for you, because you repeatedly go where it hurts, even risking your own freedom. Because you know better than anyone here in this room. You need more than photos and reports of oppression to end oppression and suffering. But declarations of powerlessness are not an alternative, especially not for you. You who were deprived of your freedom again this year. Shortly after your arrest, you said, "We were all imprisoned because we fulfilled our civic duty." Today's award is certainly an expression of the fact that we still need journalists like you in Turkey to provide us with images and text from the shadow zones of this planet. Images and text that are more than just reports from court hearings. Today's award is also a commitment to ourselves, that we need journalists like you, who shine a light into the darkness of the Erdogan regime, to maintain hope for peaceful coexistence on an equal footing between ethnic and religious groups. At a time when civilized standards are increasingly getting worse and worse and worse in every corner of the world, the commitment of journalists and our support for them is more important than ever. Dear Elif Akgül, we need you, we need your work. The commitment is not only a commitment to you. The commitment is a commitment to a free democratic Turkey that remains alive. It remains active in Turkey because of people like you and abroad. And we will continue to support both the people in Turkey and the journalists in exile in Germany in their fight for democracy, human rights and truth. Because truth will win. I thank you so much for being with us here tonight, and I thank you for your fight. Thank you.
Elif, if you like, it's about you to respond to Max.
First, I would like to thank you a lot for your kind words and looks. I prepared a brief speech, and I apologize for my voice. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, but it will be brief, so it's not going to bother you. I hope so. Can you hear me? My voice is okay. I have to check.
It's perfect.
Yes, we hear you very well.
Okay, cool, yeah. Distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, Banu, Barış, I think Tilman also there. I would like to say hi. I would have loved to be with you today attending this award ceremony in Berlin. However, like hundreds of other citizens in Turkey, I was banned from leaving the country as part of the trial for exercising, as you said before, my constitutional rights, my civic rights. Because of this ban, I can only speak to you through Zoom application. And as Amix Lux has reiterated, I would like to reiterate, the things that happened to me in the morning of the 18th of February at 6 o'clock. I was awakened by a loud knock on my door. The police were armed with long barrel weapons. They had come to arrest me on charges of belonging to being a member of a terrorist organization. They entered the house shouting and yelling and forced me to the ground. They searched the home, then they detained me. I was subsequently arrested. And among those who were arrested with me, there were 3 others of my colleagues. Simon Olson, a local journalist, my friend Hilda Starr, a prominent LGBTQI rights actress, and editor of Chaos GL, and dear Ercüment Akdeniz, that we have been working together for the past, more than a year in İlke TV. Saime was the first one among us that released. Then Yıldız, and then I was released. But Ercüment Akdeniz has been in prison for 240 days as of date. And his second hearing will be held on October 23rd. And we hope, we demand that him to be released and be acquitted and be again with his friends and family and continue his work as a journalist. During this process, the emotion I have felt in the face of all this was anxiety, worry. I worried for my family, for my cat and dog, whom I considered as my children, for how would I pay my rent, how for the life that I have built as a self-sufficient woman in Istanbul. But I wasn't afraid, and it wasn't because of courage or something like that. I wasn't scared because fear is an emotion that arises when you face a threat, something that you don't anticipate, something you don't know, something that surprises you. The experiences of my friends, professors, and colleagues whom I have welcomed back to their freedom at the prison gates, or covered their stories in the doors of the courthouses over the years, like times and times, had eliminated this element of surprise when they raided my house. So the raid wasn't a raid actually, but a message that simply said that you were the next in the queue. And that queue neither began with me nor ended with me. The story of this queue actually goes back a long time. It goes more than 23 years that AKP is in power. It goes back to Nazım Hikmet's exile, Sabahattin Ali's enforced disappearances, this Sertel case, Abdi İpekçi, Musa Anter, as you have mentioned before, Hrant Dink assassinations, and many more. Meanwhile, this continues, as I said before, because my colleague, Furkan Karabay, is still in prison for his reporting in, I think it's his 154th day in prison. Dozens of my colleagues are still on trial, and just last week, climate journalist and documentary maker Hakan Tosun was murdered on the street in Istanbul. Journalism, by definition, a profession that pursues the truth, has never been immune to these dangers, as it is the primary target of those who seek to distort or conceal truth. And these dangers have never been limited, as you said, to a single country. Journalists have been killed by the Israeli army while trying to inform the world about the ongoing genocide under fire in Gaza. Beaten during the constitutional vote in St. Petersburg, or beaten, dragged while covering the anti-mining protests in Lutzerat, threatened or tortured in Colombia, or blacklisted or exiled in El Salvador. In 2025, the profession of journalism is still considered the first enemy of those in power. But despite everything, journalists, my colleagues, we persistently continue to report for the public good. For me, for me, journalism is more than just a profession. It's not an act of heroism or something, but it's an act of witnessing, a record-keeping activity for those who will hold these perpetrators accountable when the time comes, and it's a record-keeping for the truth and the democracy. The most crucial factor that allows me to continue this work is actually the solidarity shown by those who defend the right to information and their support, the ones who ask for their rights for get the information, not just to deliver this information. It was a solidarity that kept my spirits high during my time in prison and prevented me from drowning in a sense of oblivion. It was a solidarity shown by my friends, my colleagues, advocates of freedom of the press and freedom of the expression, and even the people that I have never met who encouraged me to, with their letters, thanks to RSF's campaign. Those who bore the burden of being outside and gave a voice to those inside were the architects of this solidarity. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who showed a solidarity with me, stand with me, my friends, my colleagues, my lawyers, RSF, and of course the Media and Law Studies Association, my friends. Freedom of the press and expression is not just a matter for journalists, but all for the whole society, because without the freedom of the expression, a country, a world doesn't just become silent, it also loses its memory, and we are the authors of that memory. Hundreds of journalists are on trial in Turkey today, dozens are in prison, and some are in exile. But we, those who keep writing, who keep reading, who keep watching, are not alone or in vain. Everyone who shares a story, saves a link, shares a link, raises a voice is part of this struggle. That is precisely what solidarity is, and coming together to breaking the silence. Therefore, today I want to accept this award not only on my own behalf, if that allow me, but also on behalf of those who still bear the burden of remaining outside, on behalf of the architects of the society. The real holder of this Solidarity Award is actually the ones who left before the bars, but imprisoned within their anger and frustration, and who also carry the torch of the fight for the freedom while their beloved ones cannot. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to say, you were really brief. Both of you, we are quite long ahead of schedule, which means you will have a longer time for conversation now. Let me perhaps start with an opening question to you, Elif. I've been briefed a bit about the cases which have been brought at court against you, and like how they were researched, and actually how much you, if it wouldn't be so sad, how much you could laugh about it. But what do you think? What is the real reason behind taking your case up? Would you say there is one specific topic which you raised? Would you say it was just you were on the list and it was a signal? What are your feelings? Why is it so dangerous that people like you are doing their work just in the circumstances which are given in Turkey today? What is the reason that they go so against you?
I don't think that it's just me or my profession that is actually threatened those who put us on this trial. Because our case, the HDK, the People's Democratic Congress case, I can say, is actually kind of a demonstration, manifestation of how the government is not really is not really appreciating the citizens who are using their civic rights, who are trying to be a part of, to the governance of the society they live in. It's not just being in the politics. So it's kind of it's like that kind of a how can I say case, I can say, because they take everyone, like students, for example. They have fired me when I was a student. Then I started to, as a journalist for like 2 years, during the 2 years, for about 2 years, and they have threatened for me because they followed this, recorded the tapes when I was joining the protest or when I was covering the protest. These are both my civic rights as a person, as a citizen living in Turkey, as a journalist and a citizen actually. But why I was in this case is kind of a long and speculative story, but I can share, I think, because I have known about this case, this file, for about 2 years. I was called by police for giving testimony about a statement about some kind of accusation of the terrorist propaganda, which I echoed later. And that time I went to the terror office of the prosecution and I asked about my files against me, and they have mentioned a file of 10 years back, and that it was a there was a verdict of secrecy, I can say, on this file, so I couldn't learn the details, and they briefed me about the existence of this file that 2 years ago. It's actually, I was added in that file very closely because I believe that it's all happened with a tweet. When I was in ISF fellow in Germany, in Berlin, in 2022, there was a bombing in Istanbul, Istiklal Street, and no one claimed, but the government said that it's the PYD attack, but PYD or any other organizations didn't claim the attack. So it was a very shady operation, it was a very shady incident. So I tweeted something like, how shady everything is that. So after that tweet, I get a lot of threats, I get a lot of visibility at the same time, because a lot of people were asking the same question with me, not just me. And then the files against me started to be turned into prosecutions. Like, I was under investigation for defaming the state, but it turned to be a prosecution after this tweet. I was started to get prosecuted after for making terrorist propaganda after that tweet, and I was planning to come back to Turkey back that time, and I asked my lawyer if he can check if there's some kind of a investigation against me about that matter, and he didn't inform me. I mean, he didn't know about this case, the HDK, the People's Democratic Congress case. So when I learned about this file, the secrecy verdict that I mentioned was put on this case right after my tweets, like 3 weeks after my tweet. So I actually have kind of a suspicion, it's kind of a speculation at the same time, but it's a very, how can I say, justified suspicion, I can say, that everything happened with a tweet, and it's because raising a question. As we can see in this file, like in this case, in the HDK case, as we have seen in the Gezi trial, as citizens of Turkey who are trying to, have ever been tried to be a part of the governance of Turkey, not just the government, but the governance. Like, claiming the streets, claiming the world that we live in, claiming the neighborhood that we live in, whatever the part, when we get into the politics as politicized animals in Turkey, we have been, how can I say, recorded, we have been followed, there are files about us. And when we ask a question, even after 14 years, they can bring up these files that they can show these acts as threatening or terrorist or whatever acts against us. So I don't think that it's just about me, it's about like our government doesn't like their citizens who are making their civic duty.
I would like to hand this over to Bakirkoy. Thank you for joining us in Berlin. You're located in Düsseldorf, so your travel was...
And Istanbul, in a way, luckily. After
you
2 years of,
You were also part of the same media publishing
yes.
broadcast.
Yes.
I would like to
Very
ask...
luckily.
I would like to ask you to describe perhaps the work of Elif for us. Like, what is making her work special, and why you would say that she is one of the outstanding parts of the
Sure.
critical journalism in Turkey?
Sure. Elif and I, we met probably years ago in one of the public, in one of the court hearings about, it might have been Cumhuriyet, the Cumhuriyet newspaper case where friends of ours were imprisoned, or even before that. And since then, we've spent so much time covering trials where journalists had to stand in trial, and well, we had to report all together on different media about how ridiculous the cases against the journalists had been built. There was a time where dozens of journalists were in prison. Nowadays the number has decreased maybe, but it doesn't mean that the journalists are free in Turkey, because as you see in Elif's example, she's been set free, but not completely, because these public methods of public judicial control have a chilling effect on journalists, first of all, and then, well, she's not able to join us here in person. So, only looking at the numbers in prisons of journalists won't give us a clear picture. Back to Elif. Well, she's been, since I've known her, I don't know now how many years, Elif, but she's been keeping up doing the good work and never getting tired of it. She has this stubborn personality, which is very important for journalists in countries like Turkey. And we've never been able to work in the same news outlet, I believe, right, until İlke TV. But I've been following what she was doing at Bianet. That was the first media outlet where you started working as a journalist, I believe, second probably, okay. But I was checking on her stories, how she was covering a certain trial or a rights issue, you know. So I've been following her, and she was very dear to me. We liked each other too. And then suddenly it happened, like I found myself in doing the same program in the morning along with Elif. But the original host of this program is a morning show at a TV station called İlke TV. This is I would say, leftist, also liberal, but also a channel which doesn't turn a blind eye to the Kurdish issue. There we are doing this morning show, and actually the original host of this morning show was Hrant Dink. Elif mentioned him just a while ago. He's still in prison. He was arrested in the same case, but they all had to appear at different times in court. I don't know why they are still having him in prison. I hope, like Elif, that Hrant also will be released on 23rd of October in the coming trial. So every morning we talk to each other. We talk about how the media, the AKP media, is seeing and evaluating or saying about the agenda, trying to shape the agenda, and we have a critical approach. I'm very happy to work along with her, but the reason why I am doing this job now every day, kind of full time, is because Hrant is in prison. He was the original host. He was the original commentator in this program. I used to take part a week, only once a week, and now, in order to support the team, I said, okay, I'm going to fill in, I'm going to play the part of Ercüment. But before that, I had to also support the team in an editorial way, because Elif was gone too. Try to imagine, you have a team of people, you talk to each other every week, every day, and then suddenly 2 of your team members, your colleagues, get arrested. And you don't know when they are going to get them, when they are going to be set free. And then one morning I just woke up to 141 news messages, WhatsApp messages, and it was the day when they were taken into custody at 6 in the morning. So I'm continuing the job along with Elif, and I'm very honored to be here today, Elif. I would be of course, happier. I would be happier if you had been here, and I would come again and just listen to you here and celebrate this acknowledgement along with you. But now I happen to be the one who is going to accept your achievement, the award for you in your name. And I'm going to bring it to you beginning of November. I will be in Istanbul. I hope if everything goes fine, because we always go and ask our lawyers, just let them know that we're traveling back to Turkey, so they should check if there is anything or not, if we should go to see the prosecutor first or not. But I think that we won't have any problems, so I'll come and hug you there. Give you a hug.
Well, if I understood it right, it is not the thing that your case is already like turned down. It is that you are at home again after being in prison for around 2 months, but you're waiting for the main hearing, and the outcome is not clear yet, so to say. So it is very good that we see you at home, but you're still in a very pressured situation. What do you think? Do you feel that there's international awareness for your situation? And what would you say? What is helping you, and what can we from Germany as like normal citizens, but also perhaps as members of parliament, do to support your individual case, but also to support other cases of colleagues of you and the situation in general?
Actually, I believe that my case is actually a lot of support from you people, and I thank you for that. But like my case is just one individual case, and it's going to start, and when after the verdict, the final verdict, it's going to end. So there will be other cases, as we always says. So this support, the real difference that would have make into the Turkey's democratization process is whole another discussion, maybe a very long one. It's not apart from my story as well, because as democratic rights as a whole, we are part of that position. And the support came that way. It's actually, I have always said that, like in Turkey, we have a saying about if you clear your own door, in front of your own door, the street will be clear. It's the same for the democracy as well. The fight for democracy is always the priorly, actually initially is a local job, I can say. The fight for the democracy states starts from domestically, then goes beyond the borders. And it applies for our issue as well. Like, I want to give an example from the back years. I think, again, I was in Berlin for another program in 2018 when Jamal Khashoggi was murdered in Turkey. Just before Jamal Khashoggi we had this huge, how can I say, attack on Kurdish cities, like the Turkish army has attacked in Kurdish cities. There were clashes, but there were a lot of civil casualties. People were burned in the basements of the buildings. Children were killed with snipers. And among them, there was one of our colleagues as well. And when I was in Berlin, again, I participated in some kind of a discussion with one of my friends about the democracy and the freedom of press in Turkey. My friends from Turkey were in Berlin as well, so I wanted to see them, etc. And at the same time, the German defense minister was in Turkey selling tanks to the government that are lately used in the Kurdish provinces as well. So what I'm saying that the democracy is kind of initially how can I say, domestic issue, then international issue that starts from there. So to support here, like for having ages, we have seen that the Europe has been using refugees, Turkey actually using refugees against Europe for the whole anti-democratic actions that they use on their own citizens. So these are the soft points, I can say. European democracy are the endangered privileges of the European democracy and Europeans. And before, without facing with them, without achieving the real sense of the democracy that actually we have now seen in the streets of the Munich, we have in the streets of the Berlin during the pro-Palestine protests, when people are arresting just because of the necklaces like this, watermelon, detained brutally with the by the police. All the people, Jewish people, people with kids on their laps are beaten. My government says that, are you calling this a democracy? Are you complaining us to them, actually? And we have to be speechless. We don't have any answer for that. So that's why I think supporting journalists, supporting the communities in the whole of the world, supporting the democracy, that's why start from in your homeland. That's why strengthening your democracy, your democratic values, even in those issues that bothers you with your own political ideologies. It doesn't matter what you have, because actually I was impressed when one of my friends in Taz shared a story with me. They were fundraising a campaign for the next 1 year of the Taz, and he told me that they received a lot of donations with even the right-wing people, like the centrist people, because Taz was back then, I can say, much more leftist. And they were talking with these people during the campaign, and one of a very, as he described, white, older male, actually, that you can imagine as a picture of the centrism or the right wing, like in the whole of the world, said that I don't defend your values, but I want you to continue to work, because this is what actually democracy means. As in a Western, how can I say, culture, I can say. So yeah, I mean, the best way for you to support us, support me, support our cases, is having accountable your governments to not to sell arms to not democratic or any other countries, or holding your governments responsible for selling weapons that has been used on innocents by the other governments. That is how actually can help our cases. That is actually how when you allow free speech in your country, this is how we can say that, yeah, you see, these people actually have free speech because they don't use violence against their people when they're asking for not clearing out, leaving their homes for coal mining or for calling for free Palestine. So we can do the same, actually the very same thing in our country. In the very same thing about the Kurdish issue, very same thing about the anti-nuclear issue, very same thing about freedom of speech. So yeah, that's my answer.
It's very fortunate that we have this Max Lux, an MP here, who hasn't briefed before that I would take him also into this discussion, but I think it would be perfect if you could answer on this point from Elif. On the one hand, are we closing our eyes in general as German politics, not as you as a person, on the domestic situation in Turkey, given to the refugee situation or the geopolitical importance of Turkey in the current global situation? And second, perhaps, what would you say about this, on the one hand, fight for freedom of press in Germany in general, but also perhaps if you would like to comment on the situation regarding Palestinian or pro-Palestinian protest, I don't know how to call it, legally right, but if you would perhaps like also to answer on that.
Absolutely, thank you for taking me into the discussion. And just let me excuse at the beginning, because I have to leave in around 5 minutes to join a roll call vote here in the parliament, so I have to be there. First of all, are we closing our eyes? I think the reality and the truth is more disappointing, because we are not closing our eyes, but we don't act from what we know. And this is the terrible thing. So, as I said, I'm a member of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, which has Turkey as a member country, I think since 1960, so for many, many years, and Turkey was almost a founding member of this very important institution, securing human rights, democracy, and rule of law for everyone in Europe. And we have the best reports at the Council of Europe about the situation in Turkey. We have the best resolutions that we make as the Parliamentary Assembly. And we have the best decisions coming from the European Court of Human Rights. So we are not closing our eyes, we know what happens there, but we don't follow this institution and its reports and its judgments and its resolutions. And I think this is one of the main problems, because the European Union and honestly every political party in the European Union, maybe also including my political party, are almost undermining the institution of the Council of Europe and the thing that we know there. And the real point is Turkey there in particular, undermining the report, the resolutions, the judgments. And I met this morning with the Human Rights Commissioner from the Council of Europe, and I asked him, isn't this a real problem for us as an institution, that the European Union does not follow from what we see? So we are not closing our eyes, we know what's going on in Turkey, but we don't act like knowing what is going on in Turkey. And the best example is the European Commission and von der Leyen and the trying of the Commission to create more and more deals with Erdogan and his government, and also this current government in Germany, which allowed new Eurofighters for Turkey, I think just 2 months ago. And this is a case that really, really worries me, because we know what Turkey uses Eurofighters for. And this is my second point to the first question, this is not only a human rights question. Of course, it's a human rights question, but it's also a foreign policy and security question. So we have this conservative politician in this House of Parliament telling us, we have to cooperate with Erdogan for our security and for stability in the region. Come on, stability in the region with President Erdogan? Who are they killing to? This is not true that Erdogan contributes to stability in the region. Look to what he contributes in Iraq, in Syria, to what he contributes in Libya. We had a discussion yesterday about our German troops in the Mediterranean Sea trying to stop Turkey to deliver weapons into the civil war of Libya. So we sell weapons to Turkey because of security issues and stability, and then we send our troops into the Mediterranean Sea to stop Turkey from delivering these weapons into a civil war where they do not contribute to stability and security. So I think the problem is worse and worse. We are not closing our eyes, but we act like closing our eyes. And I'm especially worried about the huge influence the Turkish government has into German and European policy. And let me be very open in this room. When I was chairman of the German-Turkish parliamentary group, I heard the same exact words from some German politicians and from Turkish diplomats. And this was very shocking to me to see this, how big the influence of the Turkish government is into this parliament. The second question of you, Manuel, was a fight for freedom of expression regarding the protests about the situation in Israel and Palestine. And I think the Human Rights Commissioner of the Council of Europe said everything about this that has to be said, that we were not fulfilling our obligation coming from the European Convention there. And there were repressions that are unacceptable. And I don't want to create a big discussion on this topic, but just allow me one remark. I think that the rating of policy depends on the effect of policy in politics. And the effect of policy and politics regarding Israel-Palestine on the domestic level and on the international level, the impact of us was terrible from every point of view. We have rising anti-Semitism in Germany, and we have repressions against demonstrations. And we should have taken both. We did not secure Israel's security, and we did not provide a life and dignity for the people of Gaza. They are suffering still right now. It's not over. They are still suffering in Gaza right now. And we need to get the fucking aid in. And we do not have enough. So we failed in very, very many ways. And that really, really worries me. And it especially worries me when we see that we not only failed regarding this conflict, we failed in fulfilling obligations coming from international law, because international law is the thing we need to create future and stability for everyone.
Actually, Manu, I thought that you have the wish to also answer on the current topic which we just were talking about.
Yeah.
So I would hand over after the award has been given to you as a post office to Elif. I would hand over the words to you, the floor.
Thank you very much. What Elif said, the points she made were really important in my opinion. First of all, whenever these scenes from the demonstrations in Berlin or somewhere else where protesters are being beaten by the police in Germany appear in Turkey, then the government starts asking those who are expressing their concerns about the democratic standards by the police in Turkey. The government says, look at them, look at Germany, they are beating their protesters too. So it's everywhere like this. Look at France. A couple of years ago, as there were big demonstrations, protests, they keep using the same argument. Therefore, I think it's very important, the point you made, Elif. Thank you for that. And also, I have to underline the fact you've seen the attention Erdogan was receiving, the respect and attention Erdogan was receiving in Sharm el-Sheikh from all the leaders, Macron. Well, I didn't see them together in a picture with Merz but Trump was talking about him as he called him a tough cookie, and he is difficult or tough, but I like those, I mean, people this way more than others, etc. So now he is like a favorite of Trump, because he knows that Erdogan can change things in this region. So he's being seen as influential, which is the case in Syria. He's seen as the one who has, with his Minister of Foreign Affairs, changed the situation on the ground in Syria, who actually helped the opposition, the Islamic opposition, to topple Assad. And Trump was right saying that, because they planned it and they just realized what they were longing for. So from a perspective of realpolitik, every government, including the German government, has to pay attention to Erdogan nowadays, but they somehow accepted his legitimacy. And especially for Germany, I believe, it was a turning point as Erdogan's government managed to open a safe grain corridor during the war, the most difficult time of Ukraine, Russia's aggression in Ukraine. And well, the governments know that Erdogan can do more. And also this issue of refugees, the double standards we keep seeing in the European Union when it comes to the needs of people who cannot stay in their own countries and who become refugees or migrants, etc., keep them along the border somewhere. I mean, this is still going on, and of course the situation in Syria has changed, so it's another plus point Erdogan got from the countries, from the governments in Europe, because look, in Germany it was so immediate, I mean, that the government started checking on the situation of the Syrian refugees, and trying to figure out who could be sent back as soon as possible. So it happened so quickly. So this is just a further remark upon those which were made by Elif, but I think we're living in a period of time where leaders who don't care for democracy or human rights, neither for democracy nor human rights, they are supporting each other. And it's not the world we've known until recently. So short-term interests make some coalitions, some alliances, and we are the ones who are suffering. Therefore, I think it's very important that the work of a journalist like Elif is being seen, the pressure she has been put through is being seen and acknowledged here. Therefore, I would like to thank the Südosteuropa-Gesellschaft once again.
Thank you. I would have a look into the plenary and ask if anybody has the feeling that he or she wants to contribute, ask, or say something. While that, I would like to make one point anyhow. I know that pictures from police clashes with protesters, or even sometimes in other situations, are quite often discussed, not only within authoritarian regimes, also within democratic partner states we have. In my time, for example, relatively often politicians from the Balkans were telling me about it. I can understand this, and I wasn't present at the demonstration, so I cannot comment on the concrete work of police officers or the police planning and the concrete census. From my own experience in other demonstrations, I know that it doesn't have to be always right, sensible, or understandable, even from an objective observer's view. On the other hand, there's still one big difference. Questions of who can demonstrate or which demonstration routes are allowed or not allowed in Germany are not decided finally by police. They're decided by courts who are acting independent. And they have a legal base for deciding on this. And of course, you can also question if courts are deciding right or wrong. But it's not in the way that it would be easy to deny the rights to demonstrate. And of course, often this might be also a game between both, but I see there's still a difference. I see that we have a lot of pressure in Germany coming up on the work of journalists, on the work of independent newspapers. I don't see basically that state or state institutions are the main force, from my view, on pressuring them, but I see this double track of monetary, economical pressure, together with a similar situation which in the region is often described, that public outcasting specific journalists, calling them with name and address in specific online fora to make them afraid, to have a chill down effect, perhaps without having state prosecution at the place, but making them being afraid of being outspoken. That this is also happening here. So also the overall situation that society is getting more split up, that the wings of political spectra are more getting stronger, that the debate is changing and that individual pressure is rising. For sure, at a different quality and quantity, like in your home country. But in general, I see that we need to also stand up for the rights of journalists and freedom of speech in Germany, and I would really much take your point. But still, I would see from my point that not state is the main objective causing these problems. I would say more that we need sometimes state being more active in giving safety environment for journalism to work. And this is one thing which I also would like to mention, because it hasn't been mentioned by you at all, which I understand, but Turkey is still a candidate for the European Union.
You're right.
Usually when journalists are under pressure, not even imprisoned or detained or at court, but already when they're under pressure, in normal candidate states we would have official talking points like the government is responsible for making sure that they can have a safe life and do their work properly. At least the speaking points. That we seemingly forgot already, that we should have the standards also to a frozen but still candidate. Frozen in that sense of negotiations are frozen with Turkey currently, is perhaps saying already a chilling down effect on our standards took already place regarding Turkey. Yeah, this was long enough to see if anybody would like to take the floor. Yes, please, Jens, of course, our Turkey expert and the treasurer of Südosteuropa-Gesellschaft, so the most important person.
Manuel, thank you. Am I doing this correctly?
You have to wait. Yeah.
Yes, now.
You're flattering all the time, Manuel. Which, nevertheless, first of all, congratulations, Elif, for a well-deserved prize. You talked in your acceptance speech about threats, about the pressure that journalists experience, the permanent anxiety of possibly being next on the list, as you vividly described it. But then the very personal experience of an arrest, the physical experience also, as you said, being thrown on the ground, handcuffed, and subsequently the incarceration experience for 2 months. I wanted to ask you, how does the experience of prison as such, if it changes, how does it change? How does it impact your understanding of journalism?
Well, actually, a lot of people ask me the same question because I can say the imprisonment as an experience, as a person, how can I say, it actually makes me to be more detailed person. It's very weird. It's a very psychological experience that I want to share because, like, I couldn't say that I can see. I mean, of course, as a journalist, I have been covering the reports about the conditions of the prisons in Turkey, conditions of the political prisoners, or conditions of the refugee prisoners in Turkey, etc. But not maybe that much, not maybe from the first hand. But as a journalist, it actually, how can I say, opened a skill as in terms of gaming community in me, the prison experience, because prison is a place with very few, everything is the same, like every day, every people are the same. The colors are the same, there are not much colors, the smells are the same, all the objects are the same, there is nothing new. And you get used to that seeing everything every day. So very small differences you can realize immediately. It can be a smell, it can be a color. It's actually weird when I realize that, because as a journalist, like, everyone has to be little bit detailed. This is how this practices. But I can say that it's like really learning about listening to the person in front of you, not just with your ears, but with your eyes. It's what the prison experience taught me. That's very weird. I can say I became a much more slower person because I'm a fast walking, fast person in my whole life. And after the prison, I get really slow regarding my previous times. Yeah, I'm trying to, how can I say, keep the distance, keep up the distance, but still I'm not the same person before the prison, as in the terms of the being fast. Because, like, as a journalist, when I'm working, I'm aware of a lot of things, like, at the same time. I'm a very multitasking person, but it also means that I'm also missing a lot of details, missing a lot of things, a lot of points that I can see. The prison reversed that effect on me. Now I'm less multitasking. It gives me very big, I get really tired when I'm multitasking, but also I am, because I have to. But I'm also very much more drawn into the details. And yeah, when I say that it maybe looks like, yeah, very mundane thing to you, but realizing it in my personal experience was a very weird experience, I can say, because I realized that I can read people's mimics, I realize every little detail I wasn't be able to before that.
Okay. I think when someone close to you and a colleague ends up in jail, in my case, I think about her or him every day. I'm wondering how he or she is spending her day. We're sending notes via the lawyers, because these notes, written notes, you can still send them through this separate channel. They are not being read by the prison authorities. Especially for journalists. I mean, there are some journalists who have gone through this experience a couple of times. As Elif said in the beginning, she had to stand trial twice before. And these were serious accusations, you know. One of them was terror propaganda, and the other one was what was it? publicly denigrate Turkishness, the Republic, or Turkish institutions, which sounds really, really. I mean, this is some kind of a, accusation or paragraph which shouldn't exist in this century, I believe. And these were serious accusations, and we were very happy. I was very happy when she got acquitted on these charges. But now this one was, for me, something unexpected. And for a journalist to be in prison is always different, because we journalists observe. I mean, I've never been in prison. There were some things like that, but I was still on the lucky side somehow. But I know that we journalists, being right there where we report about, is also different. It's a different thing than being someone who just ended up there. I mean, in prison, I know if your mind keeps working, like your journalist mind keeps working too. It never stops. So you see so many things, so many stories to report about, as you also did. You told us and others about what you've seen there. So the governments think, Jens, that putting journalists in prison would just put them into silence. I mean, would just deter them doing their job. But it's on the contrary. When you come out, you want to do more. I believe that's what I saw, what I witnessed in cases like Elif's or other friends. And it was such a nice day when she came out. What was the first thing you said when you get out of the door? She started to shout a slogan. She said, "We're not afraid. Korkmuyoruz, susmuyoruz. We're not afraid. We won't get silenced. We won't obey." And then everyone, all the women journalists around her, they were repeating the same slogan. I was in Germany and I watched it live because friends just made a live connection on WhatsApp. I was so proud of you. Yeah.
Yeah, Elif, I wanted to ask you about another type of personal experience in your work. I remember an article that you wrote some years ago already in the Taz, German-Turkish Gazette, about your work as a rapporteur or as an observer as this infamous Istanbul court. And I think you should give us an impression how threatening, how harassing, whatever this is and what it means to work there, to be threatened all the time, or to be, they try to prevent you from entering, and you have to fight with security people, whatever. Give us an impression about that, because my impression is that, I mean, in these trials, not only the people put on trials are threatened, yes, in a way, but you as a reporter, as a journalist, are threatened in a same or different way. Give us an idea about that.
Elif, I would like to, because we have 10 minutes left, and I would like you to be at the end, so please memorize the question, and I will give Banu the possibility to answer a bit on your question.
I was asking him if I could tell something about how Ercüment Akdeniz was arrested in the morning because it's a very absurd story. I mean, I think you should know a little bit more details about it, how absurd things can go. Are you interested in hearing it? I think we can never get enough of this story. So, I mean, you've heard about the story how Elif was arrested. So she also told us, you know, I love it. She said, I was somehow relieved when I saw the police because it wasn't a fire or something. And yeah, if you're a journalist, you know that your door can be, I mean, they can come to your place anytime. There was a time, a couple of years ago, where the number of journalists in prison was higher, including myself. We journalists used to go take our shower before going into bed, before going to sleep, because if they come very early in the morning and you won't have time to get a shower, so it's better to get your shower before you go into bed. Or you could, there were colleagues who were preparing their bags, you know, in case, and so. But it was a bit unexpected this time. Anyway, Ercüment goes very early to work, and it must have been before 6 o'clock. It must have been around 5 or something. He goes out and then sees 2 policemen waiting in front of his door of the house. And he says, hello, can I help you? And they say, we are here for Ercüment Akdeniz. Okay, it's me. What is it about? We are here to arrest you. And he said, all right, okay, then go ahead. But then they said, no, actually we have to wait for the other team. And they are going to arrive around 6 o'clock, Elif, I believe. And it was much earlier. So he said, okay, then we can go upstairs if you want. No, we should wait here. Okay, then Ercüment, his wife's and his sons sleeping in their apartment, had to go to and sit in the police car for the next hour. And then came the actual team who were supposed to get Ercüment with their machine guns, etc., from his apartment. So Ercüment welcomed the team who was supposed to arrest him, and he accompanied them to his apartment, to the door, and said, okay, this is where I live. You want to take me from my apartment, so I will go inside and let me open the door for you. They said no. He first said, let me ring the door so that my wife and my sons won't get shocked or somehow when they see you suddenly. They said no. He said, I have a key, let me open the door. They said no, we have to knock on the door. We have these tools to knock on the door. I don't know how you call them, the big iron, I don't know how you call them. What you also have to change the tires and so on. And Erdogan was standing there, the key to his apartment in his hand. He couldn't ring the door. The family was sleeping inside, 6 o'clock, and they were just banging the door, having Ercüment with him on their side. So the wife came terrorized and opened the door, and then saw Ercüment just across her, and then she was, of course, shocked, and Ercüment said, they came to arrest me. But he was already standing with them. So they went inside, and then he was arrested inside in his apartment and taken out. So this is, I don't know if I told it in a compact way, but this is how absurd things can go. And then after a certain point, you start to laugh about this thing, you know. But I believe when we are longing for Ercüment to be free, so we can laugh about it together. finally. It took too long. And to your question, I'm going to say it's never safe to be a journalist in Turkey because, I mean, also depending on what issues you are reporting about, you can always end up maybe not directly in jail, but in the prosecutor's office. And then, once again, the judicial control mechanisms, it makes you act more cautiously when you open your mouth or write a story, something, because in Elif's case, she may get acquitted or maybe she will get a sentence, I don't know, but she won't have to go into prison again. There are cases like that. Barış would know about them. So they get sentenced, but the sentence is somehow, how do you say it? It's not, I mean, they don't have to go into prison, the sentence is deferred.
Yes.
Okay. So
Deferred or suspended?
suspended, okay, suspended. And if there will be another case against this journalist, it may mean that this time the journalist may go into prison and stay there a couple of years. So we are still very much concerned about the situation, and it's heartbreaking to see that actually, I'm talking about the governments now, no one cares, really, no one cares. The governments in Europe or else.
Elif, I would like you to sum this up, and then we would close. And you can answer on Hans-Jörg's question on the specific court in Istanbul as well by summing up, of course, if you want.
Okay, about the court and summing up. Actually, I'm kind of, I usually work on the issue of the freedom of speech since the beginning of my journalistic career. Also, I'm focused on gender-based journalism, the women's and LGBTQ rights, but I think the freedom of speech is actually quite fascination for me. Like back in the days, I was able to cover the internet governance forum in Turkey, internet ungovernance forum in Turkey, hold those technological and things as well. But then things escalated, so I was mostly focused on the journalism trials, the freedom of speech trials, the judiciary process. So I have never called myself as a court reporter because I'm not living in the court like my colleagues do, but like much more a judicial reporter, I focused on that issue. And I think law is, as a profession, quite fascinating about all the inspectors and etc. And as a journalist, I find it fascinating. It's like the thinking as a lawyer or as a person of law, I can say. As my friends are mentioning. About the courthouse, like the Charlie is actually feels like my second home to me, because the first time that I was covering in Charlie was all the TV trial and the journalist trial, and that trial actually started in the former state security court. So when they opened this whole palace, the Palace of Justice Palace, they moved the trial to that court. And it was the first day of that, my time in the trial. I was kicked by a security officer and flew into the courtroom after the kick. And that was how my story in the trial began. And when I was arrested, when I was detained under custody, we were taken, because when you're detained or imprisoned, you take a different route to the courtrooms. Mostly, there is this they take you to the detention center of the court, which is in the 7th below the -7th floor of the courthouse that I have never been in before. So I was saying that, yeah, this is like now I know all the gates of the Çağlayan right now because I know what it is. And that was very interesting for me because the people, the security chiefs of the courthouse that used to talk to me, try to make connection, try to make amends with my other colleagues who are much more aggressive than me. Sometimes my friends, they actually take away their eyes from me, try to ignore me. It was a very fun experience, but it's also very nice to say that after I was released, I went to the court again for covering another story. And I went to the 9th floor, it's the cafe, and in the cafe we have Mustafa amca, Ramazan amca, we buy tea from him, and he was asking all these questions to me that if I'm, how he was sad, etc. So, yeah, the Çağlayan, the infamous Çağlayan courthouse became like a second home to me. But it's also the place of arbitrary. It's like a very minor replica of Turkey, I can say. Because, for example, when I'm covering in the court, I know my rights. I know what can they do and what cannot. I mean, for example, they said that you cannot take videos in the street, in the corridors, but I can. I know that I can. No one can say that I cannot, but they say that, and they force me to, just to prevent to do my job. So it's very the same when I'm doing my job as a journalist in the streets of the Turkey as well. So we had to fight to do our jobs in the courthouse. We had a lot of quarrels with the securities. We had a lot of quarrels with the courts, and they actually, how can I say? I don't know. I'm sorry for my friend. I can say, but we were bitchy in a big time. Me and my colleagues were called as gangs in the courthouse, but that's how we actually made it open, made it possible for other colleagues as well to get into the courts, because the courts, the judges and the officials are actually so tired of us that we always shouting, crying, pushing to get inside. But they were ugly pictures, I can say, but I'm not regretting any of it. So I would do again to do my job. So they fed up us. So they said, okay, you can go. But yeah, that was, it's actually the story of the Çağlayan for me. It's not just how I felt threatening. But there's one sad thing that I feel, because I was in prison for 3 months. And like in that 3 months, everything has changed. Like, for example, before the 3 months, I was calling people regularly. But after the 3 months, I saw that people only talk through the WhatsApp calls. Now, like very practical things, a lot of change. And one of the most drastic changes happened, I think, in Çağlayan as well. Because, yeah, we have seen that everything became much, much more arbitrary. There are a lot of, there's a big square before the courthouse, and before there was some, press declarations or there's protests or outgoing. That's why you can do your protest, not legally, but yeah, for their sake. But now it's always closed, and you cannot do anything. And those officials, the security officials of the courthouse, they became like big guys, walk like big guys. And like everything has changed, like the Turkey has changed, I can say. I mean, it's very, that was the most drastic change that I have realized since I was released, I can say. But as I said, it's the same with Turkey as well. It's not far, it's a very minor replica of Turkey. Right now in Turkey, people are actually get arrested for laughing a joke. I mean, before that, they were arrested for forcing a futurist, a fortune teller, a horoscope teller, whatever it's, an astrologue, for example. So, yeah, it's the same. So I wouldn't put a lot of meaning to a courthouse in that matters, but yeah, it was thoughtful. By the way, I want to add just one little thing. I'm quite fascinated by the courthouses as well. I usually go to, when I go to I take a picture of the courthouse of the city. And I actually went to Nuremberg at 5 o'clock in the morning just to see a hearing and visit the museum in Nuremberg with a Flixbus. I want to share that as well.
So you're really a journalist reporting from courthouses. Thank you so much, Elif. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your inspiring contribution today. I think you can be sure that you have a big crowd in general following your work and following also your case, but also some people who today got the impression they will do it in the future, not because your case is the most important or the only one on earth, but your case is a symbol for all journalists in Turkey, but also in other countries who are under similar or even worse conditions doing the work which is necessary for us as well. Thank you. Thank you, Bano, for jumping in and being the postman. Thank you, the team from Südosteuropa-Gesellschaft and the team from Max Luck's office for giving us the possibility to be here. And everybody except Elif is now invited to have something to eat and something to drink outside. And I hope that we will have the possibility to invite you for some food and drinks as well in Germany, perhaps not in Berlin if not necessary, or in Turkey or wherever. It would be great to meet you in person also. Thank you and all the best for you.
I wish you bon appetit.